Good evening, Bellingham. May 19, 2025, 7 o'clock. Board of Selectmen meeting. And as a customary, we would like to also join us there. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So the first item on our agenda this evening, FY24 audit financial statement review. Mr. Brown, I believe he's gonna share some information for us. How are you? How you doing?
Hello there.
How are you?
My name is Bob Brown. Sean DeSorsi is with me tonight. The town hall staff see him more than they see me. So I'm trying to bring him along. We audited the fiscal 24 financial statements for the town with a clean opinion. It's called unmodified.
Excuse me, do you mind if John Allen, chairman of the finance committee, sits up? I know, John, you're having trouble hearing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sit right there. If you want to pull a chair. Yeah, I saw you straining, I didn't,
It's very
Get
hard.
closer, John.
yeah. Sorry, Bob.
No problem. One thing I want to mention is our opinion covers several sets of statements in this. It's a financial statement package. There's not just one set of statements. If page 23 and 24 are essentially a statement in that position, and a statement of changes in that position for your post-employment benefits trust and private purpose trust funds. These are referred to as fiduciary funds, and this is the only place this information appears in the financial statements. On page 24, the town contributed 100,000 toward the trust fund and had net investment income of 83,000 for an ending balance of $1,014,000 in the fund. Private purpose trust funds are for the benefit of an individual, so they're like scholarships, so as opposed to benefiting the team. Page 20 through 22 are financial statements for the enterprise funds. They're on a full accrual basis. Page 19 is a budget statement. Obviously, the town lives by its budget. This is a presentation of the general fund budget for fiscal 24. And the far right column, net plus for the year was $4.5 million. Collected revenue in excess of budget and returned some budgets unspent as well. Page 15 and 16 are what we refer to as fund level statements for the government. They're pretty much cash basis, and this is where you'll see a general fund, which the general fund is the main operation of the town, and that's, you know, the general fund operating budget. The total fund balance for the general fund was 18 million. 8,000,009 was referred to as unassigned. A little item to mention in that is when we present a general fund under national accounting standards, we have to blend in the stabilization funds into the general fund. So that unassigned number of 8,000,009 contains your unassigned stabilization fund of 2,000,008. So, because if you looked at that 8,000,009 and say, well, the free cash wasn't near that, why wasn't it? Well, the national accounting standards require we put the stabilization fund in that fund balance. This is essentially a cash basis balance sheet, some minor accruals, some grants receivable, followed by a revenue expense statement. the government funds have a cash basis statement, but then it's used as a basis to create a full accrual statement similar to a business. So we take this statement on page 15, we add in full accrual items such as bonds payable, fixed assets, pension liability, post-employment benefits liability, accrued interest, to create a full accrual balance sheet, referred on page 12. They call it a statement of net position. They used to call it a balance sheet as well, but they started to change the name. So on page 12, the net position for the governmental funds is a plus 30,788,000. The unrestricted number is a negative 63 million. That is because of the pension liability, along with deferred inflows and deferred outflows, which has a negative $17 million effect on the fund balance. And the post-employment benefits liability, along with its deferred inflows and deferred outflows, has a negative $60 million effect on the financial statements. One thing I would mention is, given that overall number of 60 million, I mentioned earlier, the town contributed 100,000 of the trust fund. 100,000 is a small amount when you're trying to address a $60 million overall liability.
Hey, Bob, may I ask a question? How are other communities addressing that shortfall, that 6 million? We've talked about this in the past, and
Yeah.
we don't contribute very much year over year, and I know that, but how are other towns addressing that shortfall? Well, I call it a shortfall, it may not be called a shortfall in accounting principles,
It
but
varies. Most communities your size are contributing more.
like double, triple, quadruple.
I think Foxborough is nearly 500,000.
So you do this for, I know that you do it for other communities, so Foxborough's a $500,000 a year,
About, you know.
about they budget for it
They
every year.
have extra revenue sources, you know, and
Yeah, they're doing
like,
it.
they get a large amount of meals tax and they've earmarked.
Yep.
You know,
Okay,
for that, so, you know, with the stadium and developments,
are we in any risk with the state because we're so underfunded at this point with our liability, pension
you
liability?
won't be in trouble, you know, originally. This was not, 10 years ago, this wasn't on the books. But the bonding agencies knew about it. So everybody's bond rating was not affected when it was brought on the books.
Mhm.
But bond ratings town to town will start to vary as towns address this liability better than others.
We have a pretty strong bond rating, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
But it could change if we don't start
It
addressing
could-
that issue.
yeah, it is an issue that comparing communities
Okay,
could contribute to a difference.
I didn't mean to, that
No, no.
number stares at me and scares me a little bit, a big liability.
I got a question. Why wasn't it on the books 10 years ago? That was like a common practice?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, why wasn't it on the books? You said 10 years ago wasn't on the books. Is
The,
there a particular reason or just,
the
you know?
government accounting standards changed.
Okay,
They started out both with pension and post-employment benefits, phasing it in. And then they decided it's a real liability, just put it completely on the books. And I don't recall when it changed the exact year, but it was within 10 years about.
Is there? I don't know what catastrophic thing could potentially happen that would cause us to be in a real issue. But maybe you could describe that, but if there was something catastrophic and we weren't able to fund that properly, are there insurance carriers out there that would insure the gap between? I'm sure there is one that would write it, but I wonder if do towns do that or no?
I don't know, you know, this liability, it's not structured like pension is.
Okay,
The county giving you assessments and doing a plan. Every town is on their own.
gotcha. All right, I understand that then.
And you were always on a pay-as-you-go basis.
Okay,
And you essentially still are, because whatever you do with that trust fund, you're not using it yet. I have one community where it's fully funded, but it's just a part of the community, the light plant. They had their own post-employment trust fund. And because of their revenue, they were able to fully fund their liability. And they're going to start using the trust fund to pay the benefits.
Okay,
But that, all my other clients were a long way from that.
okay,
Everybody is.
One of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is when we fully fund our pension liability. 2032 is what it's projected to be. Our pension contribution will drop from 6.5 to 1.5. It's about that, right, honey? Yeah, at that point in time, you'll have essentially a windfall of about $5 million. That's when you really wanna
okay,
make a dedicated effort to start putting a more reasonable amount of money in that. When we have budgets that are tight like they are now, it's difficult to put it aside and say, oh, we're gonna lay off 3 firemen and put 300,000 in the.
I understand.
No, I know you do,
Yeah, I
because you're
just-
sitting, right next to me and we have those
Oh, we
conversations
do.
in budget meetings.
Yeah,
I know, but that would be, a lot of communities have talked about when that pension liability goes away, because we're making sizable contributions now there to fully fund that pension liability. That's why you see that line item going up. Fortunately, this year it didn't go up by that much, but next year it's projected to go up by $750,000 in 1 year.
720.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
720. That's why we're looking to put money into our pension liability trust fund to help offset that. But
Okay.
that would be a good time for those of you that are sitting here in 2032 to really pay attention to that, certainly the finance committee as well.
Okay,
Thanks, Dennis.
thank you. Thank
Mr.
you.
Martinez?
No, I'm good for now, thank you.
Those are the highlights I just wanted to mention.
Mhm.
The census, different census statements you have here in some of the items. To me, the most important statement is the budget statement, because I mean, you live by your budgets. The county standards are gonna change in a couple of years,
Yeah.
and you're gonna de-emphasize the budget statement and move it way in the back in the footnotes. But, I've always believed it should be a statement. When this new reporting model first started in 2003, it was a choice to make it a regular statement or something back in the supplemental information. And all my clients have always decided to put it in as a statement.
Any other question? Ms. Alcamonte?
No,
Sort of action?
Yes.
I'm good.
Martinez?
The only question I have is a conversation that Dennis and I had earlier today, and that is regarding FDIC and our deposits in various banks. And it's really, to me, a risk because they only insure $250,000, and we have a lot more money in various banks than $250,000.
Sure.
And it concerns me that if we have something like happened in California, where we have a banking catastrophe, that we need to make sure that our money is insured beyond $250,000. But I'd like to understand your recommendation. I'd certainly like to hear from John over here to my left, his opinion on the matter as well as the chairman of the finance committee, because the conversation Dennis and I had, it really concerns me. And I take some risk, but that's a lot of the townspeople's money. And I know it's not, you're auditing our financial, that's got to be a reason. I haven't been able to read it front to back. But that's a concern of mine. John, do you have some?
So if you want to speak first,
Yeah.
that's fine, but that's the reason I'm here tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd say that would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. I wasn't sure if that was the only reason, but yeah.
So
for sure.
by way of context, I've been a CPA since 1983. So I'm not just retired. I never tell anybody, they'll repeat this, but when I got out of college, it was a recession. So I took a job with a local CPA firm. I ended up as an audit manager on the audit of a city and the city's general fund and enterprise fund. So I understand what you're saying, but it's more than a few years ago.
Yeah.
So my point was, I was going to make the same exact points. I had one other item I wanted to comment on, but I was going to make the same exact points. So what I did is there's a website that you can go on. Let me find the name. And you can go on this website and you can find the financial statement for every city and town in Massachusetts. It's very easy to find. It takes you like a minute. So I went through and I looked at what other cities and towns were doing with their cash deposits. And I looked at local cities around here. And there's a few that have zero custodial, you did mention
I
custodial
did
risk.
mention.
So custodial risk is a huge risk for me.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that, like, if in my opinion, it's a huge risk for the town and we should have zero custodial.
Can you
risk.
describe for people listening?
So custodial risk is, if you sold your house for $1 million, you gave it to me and I invested it in my name. If I take off or I lose it,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Flip side is you open an account in your name, so
Mhm.
there's no custodial risk, it's your money. And, there's a few other towns and their audited financial statements, they disclose no custodial risk. There's a lot of towns around here that disclose custodial risk.
Mhm.
And I'm not gonna mention any towns, and then there's, a lot of them that have, there's a few that have very small amount of cash that's uninsured. Not subject to FDIC insurance, and there's others that have large numbers like we do. 10, 12, 18 million dollars. But there's one town, and I'll name this one only because what I'm gonna say is positive, but Franklin has zero custodial risk and zero funds that are not insured. And they only have about $400,000 of FDIC insured funds, so I don't know where they're putting their money, but they're putting it someplace where it's not subject to, not being FDIC. They could be buying US Treasury bills themselves. And they have zero custodial risk. So I don't know how they're doing it. I was hoping that the CFO and I could call them and ask them, how are they doing it? And maybe we could do it. And I mentioned Franklin in a positive way. There's nothing negative about what they have in their financial statements for risk.
That's something definitely, I'm glad you brought that up. That's something probably we should look into it, anyway, so.
Yeah, I have talked about it, and John had a conversation with Heidi as well, and I know it's something that she's already reached out to Franklin to get some insight, so it's something that we'll certainly follow up with. Bob, I don't know if you get any information on that as far as what other communities are doing.
Well, one thing that's affected local communities and Unibank used to be covered by DIF and insurance.
Mhm.
And they became too large to participate in that program. And a lot of towns were using Unibank. So
Because
that reduced,
It was
insurance
covered in
coverage.
full, yeah.
you know, for all of their clients essentially. One thing to mention on the custodial credit risk is if you have a collateralization agreement with a bank, but the underlying securities were in the bank's name, it's still classified as a credit risk.
Right.
But there's a little bit of protection in that if something happened at a bank, those particular investments are set aside to cover that client. The way to eliminate custodial risk is you get a collateralization agreement and they buy things in the accountant's name. Now, obviously, there's expenses involved with that, whether it's in the town's name or in the bank's name. All those agreements, have an impact on the investment income that the town earns.
So one of the things I was gonna mention in my presentation was, I was gonna refer to what Warren Buffett does with his company, Berkshire Hathaway. And you know that they have about $1.1 trillion in assets, and they have $300 billion in cash. And it's all in US Treasury bills. That's it, that's the balance sheet. You can find it on their website, US Treasury bills.
And what's the fluidity with that in and out? Because obviously,
Well, it depends. what
we're
you
not
buy.
sitting on $36 million all the time. We have money coming in and going out constantly.
Fidelity has a bunch of different funds that you can invest, and they're invested in 100% government funds. They have $396 billion in this one fund that has short, you can
Yeah.
put it in and out by day.
Yeah, no, by day, good. Yeah, as
Yeah.
long as it has, the ability to do just that, because we may have $36 million in the bank one day, and obviously.
So you would have to have a cash flow person that says, we have to have $5 million out next Friday,
Mhm.
but you start planning now
Yeah.
so that Fidelity sends it to you on Thursday
It's
night.
as
or
easy
Friday
going
morning.
into the secured portal
Mhm.
and doing a transfer, and that transfer literally can happen within minutes if you set it up the right way.
So I would, I would suggest contacting Fidelity. They must have some kind of an arrangement where they work with municipalities on these. This is one of many huge funds that they have in US treasuries.
You would have to be real careful to invest in a fund that is almost completely short-term investments. I had a client, investor stabilization fund in longer-term 10-year treasury bonds. And they lost $700,000 in 1 year.
Oh, that's right.
And
But this
if
is
the
all-
town meeting said, I want to spend the 10 million, then all of a sudden it's not there.
This fund is always worth $1. It never changes because it's short term. But to your point, if you're investing in 10-year bonds, you could, you could. lose. So you would want to be in this fund, which is always valued at $1. And this is very easy to use. I have an account in this fund. It's very easy to use. It's simple. It's always worth $1. Surprisingly, today that's paying 3.9%, which is more than anything you could earn in the bank.
Yeah, when that $700,000 loss occurred, I pointed out that the investment policy for stabilization fund shouldn't be what it is. And the finance director then hired another firm the next year.
So it's something that Heidi will be
Okay.
Something to look into, it
Exactly.
doesn't hurt to look into it.
So the town is gonna go in that direction to
We're certainly going to do some research into it with, I think the board recognizes what you're saying, and I think that's the direction that we want to.
The part that I don't
Mhm.
understand is we're not being recorded, are we?
Yes,
Live on TV.
The part that I don't understand is why the state isn't telling the towns to actually review what they're doing to reduce the risk.
it's very true. Why aren't they?
I don't know.
Is there state
Good question.
fund that the state provides? Is there some sort of, I don't know.
That would make
Something
me
to find
leery.
out.
It is a legitimate concern because I've been doing this long enough that we had bank failures in Massachusetts as well.
Yeah.
The two different periods, I think we had. Maybe more in one period, but maybe I think just one in another one.
So the
And
state,
I had clients that lose money.
the state does have a fund where you can invest, cities and towns and the state invest in that fund.
We do have some money in that fund.
You do have some,
We do,
right?
yeah.
And that is, that's, if the state is in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So the state has $27 billion in cash and $22 billion of their cash is in that fund.
That's an
So
endorsement.
But that's an option also.
Yeah. Thank
We
you.
will look into it then, it's so. Thank you.
So. The last piece I was gonna refer to, I didn't realize you guys, you had my subject on there, but. So back in the 1990s, when I lived in Rhode Island, I had money in a bank that failed. And I had money in a bank, in a credit union that failed. So I have personal experience as to what it's like for having money in a place that.
Yeah, Monarch in the early 90s.
Mhm.
We had
A lot of people were affected by that. yeah.
I had money there that I could
In
not
Monarch, yeah,
access.
yeah.
And then when Stockton Institute for Savings, when that bank failed, I had money there. I also own shares that I still have the shares now. They're worthless.
Yeah.
So it can happen. And then that's a long time ago, but you can go online and look, and a large bank in California failed 2 years ago. Nobody lost any money
Nobody
because
else did.
the government stepped in and covered everything. That's not gonna happen again.
California's bailed them out too, so that.
So.
Son-in-law's paycheck was held up by that failure.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be very familiar.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody sitting at this table wants to go through.
No,
Oh, God, no.
no, we don't. And I think it's a good time for us to spend the time, research, protect that money best we can. Without putting the money at risk.
Sure.
And there are vehicles out there to do that.
You can earn 3.9% on treasury bills.
Why not? As long as it's
Short
liquid.
term, short
Yeah,
term.
that's the key, because we do need it to be liquid, so I understand.
Other topics we sometimes mention related to this is always keep reviewing your cybersecurity. And especially in the area of wire transfers.
I actually was gonna comment on one other item, but you mentioned, I don't understand it, you mentioned that one too. So, on the balance sheet of the company, page 12, 2 years ago, there was a net pension liability of $14 million.
Yep.
2 years later, it's $29 million. That's unusual for a balance. So something must have happened with that net pension liability for it to basically double in 2
Well,
years.
one thing you always have to look at when you're looking at that one line, you also have to look at the deferred outflows related to pensions in the middle of the page and the deferred inflows related to pensions. Because when a pension system has a unique year, they earn way more than they expected or had earned a lot less than they expected. They don't recognize that right away. They smooth the effect over 5 or 6 years through these deferred inflow positive account and this deferred inflow
Yeah, that's on
negative
page,
account.
that's on page 68. So 2 years ago, the expense was $281,000. The expense 2 years later was at 3.6 million, 13 times larger. That's the part that, to me, it doesn't click for me.
The actuaries are sometimes in this one.
It is out of control. It's out of control of everybody in the finance department found. Yeah, I understand it's an annuity, but
Yep.
times 13 is a big number.
Yep.
But it goes back to what you talked about before we started talking, the huge contribution to the unfunded pension liability.
It's a burden now, but we'll appreciate it 5 years from now when it's paid off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Did not expect it to go that way.
No?
Thank you.
Thanks for your
You
time.
guys are talking about the same items I wanted.
Well,
to
Dennis and I
highlight.
talked, I wanted to, we chatted today, so we shared information with them.
To me, it's
I'm glad you raised
that's
it.
a liability, nobody. You can do that.
Let's see.
Anything else on this topic, John, Dennis, Heidi?
No.
Okay, okay, so we good to move to the next one then?
Yeah.
Perfect. The next one is gonna be the approval of town's recent general obligation bond results. Heidi, how you doing?
I'm good, you guys. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you.
I am here
John,
to
thank you.
go over our bond sale results. Extremely pleased to report that the town of Bellingham successfully completed a competitive sale of 7.2 million in general obligation municipal purpose bonds. The winning bid was awarded to Piper, Sandler and Company with a true interest cost of 3.66 2.812%. The competition was very close, with the second place bidder submitting almost an identical rate. The strong outcome is especially notable given that the AAA rated communities are currently seeing true interest costs approximately 3.8 to 3.9. So we did extremely well. Bellingham's results reflects our strong market confidence in the town's financial management and creditworthiness. They just reaffirmed AA plus rating, S&P, for this bond sale, so that was great. And the proceeds were used to permanently finance the $2.5 million DPW building, the $1.1 million fire pumper engine, the $1.5 million for construction of the police station locker room and fitness facilities, and the $2.1 million for PFAS design and engineering work. I don't know if anyone has any questions. It's a 20-year bond.
I don't know, I think it's a great.
Yeah,
it's
I can
great-
tell you a
great
lot of
number.
work goes
Yeah.
into when one of these goes out, and Heidi did a great job with it, so.
Yeah, you did
phenomenal.
very
Yeah,
good.
Shows the outcome.
It really is.
Outstanding.
Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Martinez, Mr. Martinez?
No.
Make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
On the bond approval motion, the motion to approve the votes of the board as prepared by bond counsel to the town and presented to this meeting, which votes, among other things, formally award the bonds to the low bidder determined at a competitive sale held on May 8th, 2025, and establish terms thereof. The full terms of the vote prepared by bond counsel to the town and approved by this motion shall be incorporated into the minutes of this meeting.
Second.
We have first, we have second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Heidi.
Thanks, great work.
So I have, from Heidi, there's a lot
Sign
of
it?
papers. you need to
Yeah.
sign. So I don't know if you want to do it again.
No, I know,
There's
just
about
turn-
25 of them, so.
Yeah, let's just do it and get it out of the way.
Okay. So.
We can, we can.
just keep looking.
Yeah, we can.
Yep. Okay, so while we sign in that, we'll just move to the next one. The next one is gonna be a zoning bylaw review committee, vacant member appointment. Okay, I'm coming out. Okay, thanks, Rob.
I think everybody's aware that, well, you're definitely aware because you appointed Liz to the vacant position on the planning board, but
Yep.
Brian Salisbury was also on the zoning bylaw review committee, which opened up the position for that planning board member role on that committee. And at the last planning board meeting, the planning board unanimously voted to recommend Steve Boyette to the zoning bylaw review committee. So obviously, it's the select board's appointment. We're hoping that you will appoint him and we'll go from there.
Okay,
So moved.
yep,
Second.
perfect. So we have first, we have second, obviously unanimous, decision. It's a, and I think it's a good move. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it.
Excellent.
That was
That was it.
easy.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
just a question.
Dennis.
Also, the zoning committee, actually, with- who's replacing Brian
We're
as a
taking-
zoning board member?
We're taking applications. for
We're,
them.
we're taking them now, so we haven't, okay, I thought so, thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have a fair amount of
I
applications?
haven't received any yet.
You haven't
No,
received
it's on the
them?
website, it's on the, and it was on the Facebook page.
I thought you received
Oh, I did from, the associate member. Sorry.
correct. So the
Okay.
associate members interested.
Oh, great,
So,
Okay.
and that would be good. James Dixon is excellent.
okay, great, very good.
We
When
do-
will
I think-
when will we decide, all right,
We did an application deadline on May 30th.
May 30th, okay, so we're
So
right.
James Dixon is the associate member. So if he were to move up to a regular member, that, yeah, that it's with two members, two associates, we can say.
Yeah, correct. So actually, this is good if anybody's watching. So there will potentially be two. There's at least one vacancy for the zoning board of appeals for the associate member. We also have a vacancy for the associate member for the planning board. I know that's posted. I don't know if
Which
there's
is
been
also
any
posted.
applications, but that's another very important position that's gonna need to be filled sooner rather than later. So spread the word. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a
Senator Rush.
motion to approve the minutes of April 28th and May 5th.
We have a second?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, she made the motion, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I meant
yeah,
to say
that's okay, yeah.
second, my apologies.
No, it's okay. So we have first, we have second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay. The next one is, anything under old business? Anything under new business? And, on administrative report, Dennis?
And quick before I start talking. My allergies are still in full bloom. Just a couple quick items. We are working on motions. They're being reviewed by Lauren Goldberg. She'll be attending the meeting. So we'll have those later this week. Then the chairman typically assigns board members for the different motions. So if anyone does have a particular motion that they'd like to read, let us know. Doesn't usually happen, but if there was something there that you truly wanted to add. If you haven't been down to the police station yet, that project is moving right along. So so far it's on schedule, knock on wood. Small projects like that oftentimes can get delayed, I won't ask him if it's been delayed, he probably yells, but we're gonna say this police station, I think it's going well.
It's going really well, yeah.
The kitchen at the COA is just about done, so they're working out the kinks and they hope to be operational. They're gonna take their time, so they work out, make sure that they have a full understanding of their operation there. And of course, there's a lot to it as far as getting their, you know, the volunteers trained. They do have a hired short order cook who's been working down there for a while, but there's a lot more to it, the shopping and everything else associated with running a kitchen operation, so they're pretty excited about that. And the trail, you might have seen the snow fencing up at the high school on the Blackstone Street Fields. They're putting in that walking trail, big project, and it was funded through the Community Development Block Grant, so I think it's gonna be real popular once it's done. It's gonna be constructed much like Sned Trail, and it'd be a nice addition up there for viewing. It'd be accessible for people that have difficulty getting around, and also be great for people that just want a larger area to walk around as opposed to the track. And great job by the Memorial and Veterans Day Committee as always. They did a super job with the parade this weekend.
Yeah, congratulations to them.
Yeah, it was awesome, awesome parade. It was a great turnout and, was a-
speakers, very genuine.
yeah, was great.
That's all I had.
Perfect. So the next one is gonna be on our agenda, actually, executive session, motion to hold an executive session pursuant to general law, chapter 30A, section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body. The property is located on Maple Street, and this is in regard to the execution of the settlement agreement.
Sure, and
Second.
I'll pull the board to go into executive session again.
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Yes.
And we do plan to come back into public session.
Yep.
To finish the final item acquisition of Maple Street property.
Perfect.
So all of you that are not in this.
We're back in public session.
Okay, Bellingham, we just conclude our executive session and then we went back to a public session again.
Did they stay?
You might have just gone down the hall.
We just conclude our executive session regarding to a matter we discussed. And I would like to express as a board and as well as a town disappointment. And we are not gonna further discuss it this evening on this matter. And we instruct our town council on this particular matter. And then, you know, they will discuss it through oversight. And that conclude our conversation regarding this matter this evening. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Yeah, first we have second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Have a great night, Bellingham.